Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to the Intuitive Art Show. I'm here today with Mark Porteous, and he is going to help us really get into the topic of building a business that is in alignment with your purpose in a very authentic way. A lot of us can get really excited about the prospect of building a business and living our purpose, but sometimes we can get sideswept by all the shoulds and the old ways of doing things, and just it's kind of a madhouse out there. So I'm really excited to talk to him about staying true to yourself and staying centered and grounded, but still building a business that helps people, that transforms lives. And he's a really great example of that, and just so down to earth. I'm so glad to share him with you. We did a drawing today. He did one too. And we're going to get to that in just a second. But mine is about what is my why? Why am I in business? Why am I doing this? We are going to talk about, living our purpose, but why, right? How can we make it a little bit more easy to grasp in our day-to-day lives? Because when we wake up in the morning, sometimes we can have that thought. What am I doing? Why am I doing this? Why do I need to go to my desk right now? So with my certified intuitive artists, we have a monthly meeting, and this was the theme for last month. So here's the drawing. This is my big why of why I'm in business. And it was, I couldn't have said it better myself if I tried. And this drawing talks about spiritual evolution because of all the purples. It talks about universal love and feeling that. It also has my creativity color and shades of my wealth color and my ease color. So creating, spiritual evolution, wealth, and ease. Basically, that sums it up, why I'm doing this. And because it's coming from my higher self, I can kind of grasp that it's not about ego. The wealth part's not about ego. The love, the creativity, it's not about just getting out there. This is my true core. So it's pretty nice. So Mark, before we talk about that, and before I really introduce you further, do you want to share your drawing with us?
Yeah, I would love to.
Cool.
And before I do, I was just holding back my laughter as you were kind of going into the theme about being grounded and how that's such a big challenge, because that's what the intention I had when starting this picture. And we didn't really go through it as far as, I didn't tell you what my intention was before you announced that, but my intention was, how do I stay grounded in this storm of things that are happening, not just in my business, but in my personal life is deeply affecting my business, and trying to create that balance and getting clarity and direction. So let's see if this is the top and it goes down to there. So I don't know if you can see it all the way back there, but that's the whole picture. And as you were talking about the colors, for me, yellow is a power color coming, I guess, from the yellow chakra. Mm-hmm. And that's something where in me, a lot of times I didn't believe in myself. And I've done a lot of work into being able to stand in my own power. The gray maybe represent cloudiness. It's a lack of clarity for me. I guess it just kind of reminds me of fog. And then you were talking about the purple being spirituality. We think about the top chakra, the seventh chakra, and blue being the color of communication. And I'm not sure quite what the pyramid is, but it reminds me of being grounded, and the blue about being connected to the groundedness, but all of the things being connected, even though they're showing individually that they're all connected to each other. And I guess this is kind of like a North Star, a true north, and being able to know what your purpose is and standing in your power is the guide and the foundation to keep your true north and help you keep grounded in all of the storms of life.
Yeah, amazing.
And that was only the second time I've done your exercise. The first one was in the training. So it's very fun for me how easy and intuitive it actually is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we've already talked about so much. It's kind of hard to take a step back at the moment and not just go in with questions right away. But I'd love for people to kind of understand where you're coming from and what you're offering these days. So can you tell us about your book and about the Inspired Messenger series and all about that?
Absolutely. The book is such a big piece of the kind of the turning point, but it was a long turning point. I was 21 when I first read the quote that we're not human beings having spiritual experiences, we're spiritual beings having human experiences. And it was the first time I'd ever heard that. It was the first time I'd ever even been in a metaphysical bookstore. And I just all of a sudden felt safe and at home. Like a lot of the things I'd been talking about and writing about all of a sudden made sense. And so I knew that I wanted to get this out in the world. The first thing I did was told my father, who had written 3 books, and his advice was, don't expect to make money writing books. And what he meant was, you have to have a company behind it. You have to be able to get your message out in a deeper way. I didn't realize that then at the time. So I actually built a company to support my passion. And it was called Unique Ventures. We sold souvenirs at amusement parks. Somebody that I knew had been selling hair wraps at Disney and made $1 million in 2 years. And I said, if he can do that, I can do it. And started at resorts and stuff here in Orlando. But soon I had about 100 employees around the country at different amusement parks, most of them teenagers. And I had spent 5 years building this business to support my passion and done nothing with my book and my writing and what I really saw as a big part of my purpose. So I sold that company and went to work in sales, figuring I could make more money in less time and have time for myself to write. In a couple of years, I had the book done, and then I could focus on my purpose. 10 years later went by, and my twins were born. And that was when I realized that if those 10 years went by that fast, the next 10 would go by even faster. I knew if I didn't do something different, I would be teaching them the same deferred lifestyle of putting off your passion, your purpose for the comforts of security and doing all the things you think you're supposed to do and should be doing. And so it took another year before I made the leap. But in the process, I learned a lot and I prepared. And then, so about 4 years ago, I left the corporate world where I'd been in sales and marketing, and went into. I published my book 1 year after they were born, and my wife said, "Okay, now what?" And your why? My why was definitely the kids, and then the what wasn't sure at the time. She was the one who suggested coaching, that it would be a good support for the book. I really wasn't familiar with coaching that much at the time and thought it was kind of like an alternative to therapy for rich housewives. So we did some research. We found out the average life coach makes like $20,000 a year. And I said, okay, well, that's not going to work. And my wife said, well, why do you think you would be average? You've always been a top sales rep because of being in service, even teaching something you weren't passionate about. Here's what you're passionate about. Why don't you think you'd be one of the top? And we looked at what the people that are really making a huge wave in the transformation industry are doing, and said, yeah, that's great. So I started off coaching heartfelt, heart-centered businesses to be able to figure out what their passion is, and it's still a big part of what I was doing. But I realized that my divine purpose is being a connector and bringing people together, building community. So that's how the Inspired Messengers Network was born just over 1.5 years ago. And we have wonderful people on there who are learning and awakening to their message, as well as mentors and guides who help both on the personal level as well as the business aspect of it, and service providers as well to help with all the different aspects of building a business that's really based on your purpose.
Very cool.
Little summary.
Yeah, a little summary. Can you kind of describe what you were feeling when you were in those jobs that weren't your purpose? Like, you probably were making great money, or, you were comfortable in your lifestyle. You had free time probably, because you weren't doing that thing on the side. what was unfulfilling about that? What was like the nagging voice, or what made that not okay for you to continue doing?
That is such a wonderful question, and posed so well. Because yes, it was very comfortable to use that word, and then I wasn't expecting it to be so comfortable when I got there, and that's why it was 10 years later before I woke up and realized I'd been sitting on this nice, comfy couch, and the whole time I was there was a kind of a growing hole in my soul. I knew that I was meant to do something more, and I didn't know what it was, why it wasn't happening. In fact, was a big part of me being able to finish my book, was that I realized I wasn't really being congruent with what I was writing. And so I actually created my first program that's now Max Your Life Personal Empowerment Program to help myself be one of my most important values, which was congruent and aligned. And that really kind of accelerated everything. It was about really discovering who I was. So what I realized was that no matter how successful I could possibly be in a business that was outside of my purpose, nothing could fill that hole. No trips. We went trips all around the world and did different things. And yeah, we had more money and definitely more time, but the time got filled up with social activities, not meaningful work. And as that kept growing, I just kept feeling this growing hole where I knew that I couldn't go on. But the problem was I just had twins. I've the 1-year-old twins, and I felt this responsibility to take care of them. But I also felt like I knew that they were brilliant beacons of light in the world, and I wasn't doing my job as a role model for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that hurt.
I think that's a really good point to bring up, because a lot of people, I feel, they feel like it would be irresponsible to leave something comfortable, especially if they have kids. And you saw the advantage of giving them a role model who is in something that they're passionate about, spreading good throughout the world. So congratulations on that. That must have been hard steps to take. I'm sure there were conflicting emotions there.
They still come up as you talk about it.
Yeah.
It's still terrifying not having one of the best health insurance. We had really, really good insurance, and now we have to pay for our own. And there's so many issues around that for entrepreneurs. But yeah, having that security and the financial security, and weighing that against the spiritual security.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for talking about that, because I really like pointing out that, regardless of how you're perceived to be, successful or wealthy in the world, it's all about here. Because if you're not really fulfilled and wealthy in your heart and, in your spiritual life, if that's important to you, nothing's really going to fill that hole except doing what you're feeling called to do. So I love that. And of course, you can be wealthy and a spiritual entrepreneur or heart-centered entrepreneur too. There's nothing saying that that's not possible.
And thank you for sharing that, because that is one of the biggest challenges that I've seen with my clients is a conflict, feeling like you can either be wealthy or you can be spiritual. You can't be both. My father was a minister until I was 6, and I've seen a lot of people where there's limiting beliefs around spirituality and money. And I believe money is energy, and we're entitled to have as much of it as we need. And there's an infinite source. It's not scarcity at all. So being able to embrace that and share that was great. Thank you.
Yeah. And not only that, it's funny how money has affected me differently in business. And as I've gone down the path more and more, I find that my lifestyle, my desired lifestyle, keeps getting more refined, and I actually need less money, or things will come to me for free, like crazy big things you'd never think about. And so when I started making a lot of money in my business, it was totally new. I'd never really had a lot of money, except for when I lived with my parents when I was younger. And so that was a new experience. But then I discovered I really don't need a lot of money, and I'd rather work less or go away more, or things would come to me for free. And so it's been a very interesting journey to kind of look at money in a very different way.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's all about perspective.
Yeah.
Yep. And you're right. When you have that healthy perspective, a good relationship with money, it's interesting the way that it flows in much differently.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very cool. So let's talk about some limiting beliefs, because in my why, it's funny, I was posting this in a Facebook group earlier, and I forgot to mention that it included wealth. And I was like, that's interesting. I wonder why. And one of my limiting beliefs had been the idea of financial success and how that really works, being a spiritual person or heart-centered entrepreneur. The idea of having more than you need, that's really where mine comes in. I've always had what I need, even if it's extravagant for the moment. But having more has always been a struggle for me, and kind of allowing that and having that be okay and not kind of make me discordant in my heart. I'm sure you've probably seen that come up in a lot of your clients. What do you think that's about, and how do you deal with limiting beliefs with your clients?
Well, the first part of it is being able to identify it. And a lot of times people, including myself, have a hard time seeing it from our own perspective. We're just talking about just having that shift in perspective. So being able to kind of help them to see it from an outside perspective really can bring up a lot. I was just at a wonderful 5-day intensive for a training program that I'm in. And it's really about helping spiritual messengers get out in a much bigger way. And they had a 2-part thing on sales. And the first 2 days was all about sales. And I've done tens of thousands of dollars worth of sales training through my company, the previous corporation that was paying for all of that. But this was very different because it was about transformational selling. And they were talking right at the beginning about in the 1950s when Listerine was the first one to come out with fear-based selling about the fear of germs. And they realized they had 3 times the return on investment that they had when they did Joy and Rainbows. And it's been like that ever since. So being able to change your perspective. So they actually sent us out on the streets and said, go out and raise $50 and come back. And there were all different ways of doing that. For me, I actually did surveys where I asked people what their opinion was worth and if they would pay me $1 to share their opinion. And I raised $15, which was like the second highest total. Only one person hit the 50. Most of them got none. My partner got 75 cents. And it brings up all the issues that we have about asking people for money. And when I was asking total strangers what their value was worth, and I only went small instead of asking big. I was like, I could have said, your opinion's worth $50. Would you give me that? And maybe one person would have thought that. So again, it was kind of thinking small and appealing to them. It was also asking a stranger, I don't care what their opinion is. And I think that's what a lot of people feel like. Either, well, first of all, they don't appreciate their own value, but they're also concerned about what other people will think about them. And they're projecting their own beliefs about money onto someone else. Mm-hmm. So being able to shift them and look at how they view themselves by doing an exercise like that, or really helping people to see where they find their value. And it's usually in the things that people are telling them where their value is supposed to be, and not just the real natural gifts. Being able to be present, I can feel your connection. You're with me, and when you just do that naturally, you don't have to like turn that on. That might be something that you don't realize how well you do. And that's often the case with my clients, where they don't understand that. And their divinity to their connection to the divine, to the fact that they are divine beings, that each of us is a divine being, we forget that. And when we can remember that, it makes us, our relationship to money and to receiving in general, that relationship changes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I like what you say about how people undervalue their gifts, especially the innate ones. I definitely see that all the time. Um, it's funny too because we kind of push the ease away because we think it has to be hard. And as you know, as we learn to embrace our natural gifts and really leverage that, it does get a lot easier. You have a lot more time, um, but it can bring up other things. So you help people become more visible, right? Inspired messengers, like you're helping these people who have something to say it. I deal with a lot of people who have a fear of being seen, and they're afraid of speaking up. They're afraid of having an opinion. What can you tell us about that? And any remarks that you have about that issue?
Absolutely, and it came very powerfully and intuitively. The words of one of my mentors and partners and colleagues, another member of the Inspired Messengers Network, one of our guides. His name is Edward Mannix, and he calls that the persecution imprint.
Mm-hmm.
Where whether or not you believe in past lives or you just know what happens in the Australia and I think the Netherlands, they call it the tall poppy syndrome. If you
Yeah.
stick out too much, you'll get your head cut off. And literally, throughout history, those who have stuck their neck out have had their head removed. And there is this cellular memory, and if not more than that, this memory of this could happen. And so, and it's very common, even in our own lifetime, when something happens, you remember that experience and you replay that again and again. So even if you've ever put your hand up in class and been ridiculed, you'll remember that. And so after a while, you're trained not to stick your hand up and not to be seen. And I think especially those of us who are really here to be of service, it's this crazy paradox where we want to help people, we just don't want them to see us, and that makes it really challenging to do our work when we're still living in that paradox of feeling like if we are seen, we'll be taken out.
Yeah. So do you have any advice for people that may be experiencing that?
I do. And with that, one of the things is you had mentioned just before that question was about life, about it having to be hard. And that's another one of those limiting beliefs that we form from our parents working real hard and not being in our lives because they had to go out and make money, and it's hard. And so that's, again, one of those experiences that you have that you hold on to. But with the persecution imprint, it's so important for inspired messengers to really be able to practice this, because we're so good at having compassion for other people that if you can really turn that compassion inward, and be able to understand that what happened or whatever experience it was that made you feel this way isn't your fault, and that you're still a good and powerful divine being. And then also having compassion for whatever the experience was that brought you there. Everything does happen for a reason, the good and the extremely bad. And sometimes it's really hard, especially when we're not clear about the bad and why it happened, and we can just feel like there's nothing good in it. If we can forgive all that, we can show compassion for the experience, for the people that were involved. But most of all, if you can really have compassion for yourself, and that whatever feelings you're having, whether that was hate or anger, you're not bad because you had feelings that were very powerfully negative, or even the fears. And I get guilty sometimes for having fear, and it's all something that we all have. So showing yourself compassion, I think, is the best thing that you can do to overcome that.
Yes. And before you were talking about projecting, I think we project a lot as well. Like I remember in the beginning of me making videos, they weren't all that great. They were kind of rambly, but it was my style and I knew I'd get better over time. But I remember editing, and I was allergic to my cat at the time, and my nose would always be really, really red. And I don't normally wear makeup or a lot of makeup. And so it would just look red on the camera. And I would so not want to post those videos. I was like, no one's going to watch this video. My nose is too red. So they're not going to want to see it. But those ended up being, like the best videos or the most watched videos. Nobody cared. Nobody probably even realized, it was all in my head. So definitely more compassion toward ourselves, because we are going to react so much more than probably 99.9% of the other people. We're going to make things up about ourselves that aren't true, and no one else is going to care. So really great advice there.
Right on.
Yeah. So authenticity in a heart-centered business. Why is it so hard? I mean, is there an easy answer to that, or is it about the journey? Is it about kind of bumping up against what we're not and kind of fumbling around? Because there's a lot of fumbling in business, right? I mean, we kind of constantly have to be clued into how we're feeling so that we can stay on our authentic course. Take it away.
So you started off by talking about is it the journey itself, and I really believe that that's a big part of it, that we get so tied up in the destination and focus on that we miss a lot of experiences. I just was telling you about this live event, this intensive that I was at. One of the other things we did was a scavenger hunt, and we were in Washington, D.C., going to these 7 different clues. We went to all the big monuments and everything, and it was meant to be fun and also competitive. They had really great prizes, but it was all about being a team, and it was about a community building skill. But I was in such a hurry scouting out and getting ahead and helping my team that I wasn't present for the experience. I was at the Washington Monument. I was in front of the White House. No selfies, no pictures of anything to share. It was just so focused. So I think being present is really an important part of that, but also that authenticity, like you said, it's a process, and I think it's really a process of self-discovery, and those bumping up against the resistance helps us to discover who we are. We are so inundated with what we think we're supposed to be, who we're supposed to be, what we're supposed to do. A lot of times we can't tell what's the programming from what's the real us. And so really, if you can anchor into your values and peel back the layers of what doesn't fit you anymore, and realize that we are evolving beings. So although we are the same at the core, there's been so many layers put on top of that it's this lifelong process of peeling it all back and just being comfortable with where we are, wherever we are in that process, that's exactly where we need to be.
Yeah, I love that you're talking about it's not about the destination, about how we're also evolving. I kind of, as the years go by in business, and I see a lot of people with dreams of $1 million, or, the island retreat that they own and some amazing foreign place. I love that. And I totally honor people with that motivation. But the more I look inward, the less it is about the destination or the money or like what all of that will be able to finance. And it's more so about getting really quiet and figuring out what will make me happy in this moment. Like, what is my truest desire in this moment, even if it's just to have a cup of herbal tea and like sit on my balcony, and that doesn't mean that my business doesn't make money. It doesn't mean that I'm giving up like broadcasting and creating and seeing clients. But it's changing for me. My evolution is making me look at my business and my goals differently. And I wonder if a lot of other people are seeing that too. Have you come across that, or do you feel like that?
Absolutely. I feel like that all the time. And again, yeah, we can put this guilt on ourselves of we should be doing this or we should be doing that, and enjoying that cup of tea. I could be making a sales call, or I could be following up in an email, whatever it is. But there's always something else that you could be doing, and if you're always doing all of those things and you're not taking the moment to just to smell the tea, whatever it is, if you're not really in the moment, you spend your whole life like that. And you wake up 10 years later and realize, oh my goodness, I don't want to keep putting off everything. I don't want to keep thinking about what's next. I have a client who's a high performance coach and a high performance trainer for talent. And she's had amazing success. And every time she's gotten great roles or great clients, it's always, she's thought herself, part of high achievement is, okay, I've got that, and then what's next? And she really got to look back on her life and say, oh my God, I had these amazing experiences. I was 2 years with the Rockettes. I had all these just amazing things. And it's a shame that I have to look back and appreciate it. And I couldn't have really, really been appreciating it the whole time. Like you said, it totally shifts what success means to you. And you're right. It doesn't mean that you can't be very financially successful and whatever that means for you, but also be very, very present. In fact, Richard Branson is a great example of that. And there's a lot of other people who are great success role models who practice mindfulness. And I think that's really a key tool to help us stay present and to live more on purpose.
Yeah, I just watched a couple of weeks ago the Tony Robbins documentary that's on Netflix now.
I've seen it.
Yeah, I'm Not Your Guru. And he talks about the difference between achievement and fulfillment. And fulfillment really being what we're all after, because that's what's going to really satisfy us. And achievement, again, there's nothing wrong with it. It's awesome but achievement just for achievement's sake isn't going to fill you up.
What a great way to sum up everything we've shared tonight. That's perfect.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. Yep. And there's all kinds of structure that I've learned about purpose and authenticity. I worked with the True Purpose Institute, and they have like 4 aspects of purpose: your essence, your core values. We've talked a little bit about values, and blessing, like we were talking about before, that unique gifts that you have that you don't even realize. And what is your message? What is your self-expression, basically? And then your mission, your soul's goal. Those are the kind of the 4 aspects that they talk about. And then there's Eckhart Tolle, who just talks about 2 simple aspects: your being and your doing. And your being is usually achieved through some form of, or an ongoing form of personal development. And your doing is really how you show up of service in the world. And as long as you're being who you really are, and you take inspired action based on what you want to be, then it doesn't matter what you're doing, you're achieving your purpose.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I really love that way of looking at purpose, as it's not a job title, it's who you are and what you're inspired to do. I definitely talk about that in my own work as well, because I think it's important, right? We don't want to attach something so fundamental to us to like one way of doing things or one way of being in the world. How can people work with you? Because you mentioned something really interesting before we hit record, and that you needed help yourself finding out what your passion was and what to create as your purposeful business, right? And is that program still running? Do you still have that?
It is. So I have an assessment tool. It's the Discover Life Mapping Your Purpose Sweet Spot. And it's really about identifying the areas in your life that you're passionate about, what you know, and a lot of times what you know. We have a way of helping you remember really what some of those gifts are, and then being able to see how that serves a need in the world. We're talking about the purpose of doing, and then there's another important component of that, of what's valued. So what people will pay for, what service that you can provide. So we have an assessment tool that people can go through, and just the process alone of answering these questions helps you to kind of see a way for you to be fully expressed through living your purpose, and to be able to make a business out of it, to be successful as an entrepreneur. And then as a bonus for anybody that's listening to your show, if they download it for free, they can also set up a 30-minute discovery call with me to kind of go over that and actually have a personalized life map.
Perfect. It's funny. I was just at my hairdresser's the other day, and he's a great guy. He's really amazing. He's their head of education. And he was telling me how he wishes he could travel and hike around like I do and get to see more of the country and the world. And I told him, like, there's always a way. There's definitely skills you have, especially since you are an educator. You could make videos, you could, create something, or change your profession and do something else that would be fulfilling. And I think this would be perfect for him, because it would open his eyes to the fact that there is something that he could do that could be monetized. So I'll definitely send this to him, and everybody. I'll do it. We should always be trying to find out what we're about and see in new ways what we could be doing. Because I think we're never going to see the whole picture of who we are, because we are it, right? Where it's kind of hard to see yourself. So any kind of assessment or tool that can help will be really eye-opening, I think.
It is. And one of the key things, I love that you brought up your friend, because a lot of times we think about the things that we're getting paid to do, but in many cases, the lessons that we've learned in different jobs weren't really the job titles. Like if you're in HR, you're supposed to be good at organization and structure and training, but it's your personal skills, it's your communication skills. That's what makes you good at your job. And so being able to identify the things that you like about your experiences, because that's also really important. To do something that you get paid well for and you don't like it means that you're spending a huge portion of your life doing something you don't like, to have a little bit of time doing what you do like. So yeah, if you can find things within those jobs, it doesn't necessarily have to be, if he's a photographer, it may be the interaction with people or the planning. There's so many different pieces of that. So yeah, this exercise kind of brings out some of the things you may miss yourself.
Awesome. Is there anything that you want to wrap up with? Anything that we didn't cover that you feel is important? I know it's a huge topic. We could probably talk about it for a week, but anything that comes to mind?
Well, I think just what comes back is right at the beginning. We're talking about being divine beings and value. And when you devalue yourself, you take away from what you can offer to other people. It really is of the highest interest to take care of yourself, just like putting the oxygen mask on yourself first in the airplane. You do that because it puts you in a better situation to help others. And we're so often thinking about putting everybody else first that we forget to take care of ourselves. And you can evaluate if that means taking care of yourself physically, spiritually, emotionally, or bottling everything up, and being honest with yourself about how you treat yourself, and know that if you believe that you're a divine being, or you think that anybody else is, there's nobody else that deserves that more than giving that to yourself, so that you have more to give and you can be more of who you really are.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that brings something up too. And I just want to mention that it's funny, both of us, Mark and I, are having some family health issues go on behind the scenes, and it definitely affects our business because, we're only one person and we can't be in two places at one time, even if things are all automated and everything. And part of my self-care is that I'm not just giving up everything to go and help, right? I'm still running things. I have more help, or I'm more automated, but I'm still preserving myself so that I can deliver to my clients and be there for myself and in my purpose. And Mark, I'm sure the same is true for you.
It is, and that's an interesting extra point to bring up. And it goes back to kind of this picture, and it's probably why that picture came up in the first place is how do I ground in the middle of all this storm, and understanding the importance of your mission and your message. If you, again, can't love yourself enough, then you can at least love and respect that you're here for something really big, and to say, okay, I'm going to put all of that off to take care of somebody else. We definitely, the people that I love the most right now are the ones that are hurting the most, and I want to be there for them, and I can be there for them and still be on mission and still take care of what I need to do. And when there's a will, there's a way. You can always find a way to be in alignment with your purpose and still be able to take care of all the people that you love.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because I know there's a lot of, stay-at-home moms out there who are starting their businesses, and there can be pressure from other parts of the household to kind of not do that, not take away time from the family, or, there's so many situations that this can apply to, but I just wanted to mention that because there's so much guilt that we feel on a daily basis about carving our own path and, really valuing ourselves. So, keep at it, everybody. You've got so much to share, and the world really does appreciate and value what you have to offer. Even if in the beginning it can seem like crickets, just takes a little bit of time normally.
And I like that you brought up the family, like in other, especially single mothers. When I started my business, when I left my corporate job, I still had no clients, I had no list, I had no platform. But I had built up savings, I kind of had a strategy. It's not a strategy I would recommend for most people, and especially for most of my clients. But my children were 2 years old at the time, and so for the first 3 years of my business, I was at home. They were there, and they knew I was at home, even if I was in an office with the door closed. Much of the time, I was in the living room. They were in their bedroom, and so I wasn't present for them, and that I had a lot of guilt issues about that. And so I felt when I was doing my work, I was thinking about my kids, and when I was playing with my kids, I was thinking about my work.
Yeah.
And it goes back to that whole being present of whatever you're doing, just be there and do that. And so there are ways that you can kind of create boundaries, but I used to believe in this balanced life. Like, okay, I've got this time, I just cut off, and now I'm family. And I know now that my life and my business, my personal life, it's all blended together now. And I just, instead of creating balance, I'm looking for harmony.
Beautifully said. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think this is a good place to end, everybody. You can find your own sense of harmony in your business and your personal life and everything else. And definitely go take Mark's assessment. We'll have the link for you on the blog post. If it's an easy link, do you want to say it now too?
Yeah. The direct link is Mark Porteous. That's markporteous.com/purpose. And that'll give you the download. But in order to get the free 30-minute session, just email me. Let me know that you were watching Rachel's show and saw me there, and then I'll send you a link to set up a free consultation.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. This has been a really enlightening conversation, and thank you for sharing your drawing too. And have an amazing day.
Thank you. Thank you for being you and all that you're doing. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. If you're new to intuitive art and you've never done it with me, go to intuitiveartacademy.com for your free class. You'll learn how to have a conversation with your higher self in 3 easy steps. That's intuitiveartacademy.com. And if you're already a pro or you've done the free class and you want to learn more about creating abundance from your purpose, go to workyourpurpose.com and you'll watch a free video series all about what it takes to create a purposeful income from doing what you love. All right, enjoy, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.